Welcome everyone to our new and last section of Rust tutorial. This will be our first video of this section. Previously, we learned about non-blocking features of Rust and web framework, Hyper. We also learned about the fundamentals of Hyper framework. As we learned earlier in the previous section, Hyper has both HTTP client and a server. We introduced both previously. Now in this section, we're going to finish up our task to build a real-time robot simulation application. We're also going to block out our Hyper server. Then we'll plug in WebSockets. Afterwards, we're going to adapt those WebSockets. Moving on to this section, which deals with shaping up the web server. What we're going to do is prepare a handler that'll handle requests and responses. We're going to prepare and send it to the server. Then we're going to make the handler synchronous, so that way it can communicate with all states. These lines of code will create a WebSocket using Hyper, then send a handler to make connection with the server. At the same time, this code makes the handler synchronous, then prepares a request-response pair so that the client can communicate with the server. WebSocket and Hyper crates are imported at first. We'll use thread and IO from stdlib, WebSocket, and Hyper. At first, the HTTP handler function sends a response to the client with a web page, per the request from client to the server, as you can see here. Notice that the response is ended up with the command response.end.unwrap. Inside the main function, these lines of code start listening for the connection. Here, the value inside the HTTP function is the IP address of the web server. As you can see here, a handler of the server always gets a pair of response requests. This means that each time it receives something, there will be a response and a request. Handler always uses IO::read to read any request, and also uses IO::write to write a response. While reading a request, the handler reads the body of the request. Similarly, while writing a response, it writes into the status and the header of the response. Now let's run the code in the command prompt by typing cargo run. Now we can see that it is running. Let's go to the browser, input your IP server address, and you can see the web page here. Type hello in the input box and hit send. You can see the response and the request printed here. We can also try the same with input hi. When you come back to the command prompt, you can see the connection messages from the client. So with all that, we've blocked out our server to accept request and send response.